All right, so without further ado, let me turn the music on and let's get started. Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video, we are going to be doing an overview on the recent live letter number 44 for Final Fantasy XIV, the patch 4.3 Part 2 live letter. We got some information about some stuff, we got tons of pictures, but first let's give credit where credit's due. These unofficial translations you're going to be reading are coming off of the Reddit Discord. Credit to Iluna Minori for doing the translations and Hez Kessel for the pictures you're going to be seeing. One important thing, this is unofficial, so there may be mistakes here, there may be some things that aren't 100% accurate, so do not take all of it verbatim. Wait for the official digest to come out from Square Enix themselves, and that will be all the official information that you need to be reading. So without further ado, let's get into the live letter. They showed the trailer. We're going to do a trailer video separately from this one where we break down I think it's about 4.5 minutes of what's in that actual trailer. So here's a few screenshots. You can see Construct 8 or Worker 8 from Final Fantasy Tactics. That's going to be a boss in the Return to Ivalice raid. There was a little preview of Ultima Weapon Ultimate, which we'll be talking about a little bit later in this video as well. They also showed the trailer again, and there was just a few other screenshots here. You have one of Famfrit, the first boss of the Ridorana Lighthouse. I always have to stop myself from saying Pharos at Ridorana. You have a screenshot from Pagos looking at the center piece from the actual area of Pagos. You have what looks to be the probable final boss of the 4-man dungeon, which is Sun Wukong. The dungeon being the Swallow's Compass. You have a picture of Xenos here. Now, this is something we'll have to talk about a little bit more in depth to really get the right idea of these images right here, because theoretically these are illusions, although obviously after the events of 4.2 this wouldn't be a surprise. Based on what actually happens in the trailer itself, these are likely to be illusions based on the trial fight or based on some sort of solo instance preceding or after the trial fight that is still unnamed and unknown. So we'll just keep going down here. Again, more pictures. Release date, May 22nd. We predicted that, so it's not really too much of a surprise. However, there will be more information about when certain content is being released in patch 4.3. This screenshot is another one that we'll have to talk about a little bit more in detail, because I have my theories about that, and it's a one-word theory of it's Gaius or, well, that's not one word, but Balthier is the most likely thing for that right there. It doesn't sound like it's Gideon Emery, but despite its proximity to certain other things in the trailer, the way he says, oh dear, just sounds way too close to me to not think that it's Balthier. The other option would be Gaius without his helmet, but we'll talk about that in the trailer video itself. Yeah, it's most likely both here. 24-hour maintenance day before, also no surprises there. They also did a quick recap. If you didn't watch the first live letter, patch 4.3 will have new main scenario quests, new side story quests for the Four Lords and Hildebrand, the Namazu Beast Tribe quest, the Doman Reconstruction quests. It'll also have the new instance dungeon, the Swallow's Compass, the new trial, which remains unnamed, the new 24-man Alliance raid, the Ridorana Lighthouse, a new deep dungeon, which will be in 4.35, the Forbidden Land of Eureka Pagos expedition, which will be in 4.36, the Weapons Refrain Ultimate, that would be Ultima Weapon Ultimate, which will be in 4.31, various job adjustments, as well as some quality of life stuff, feast updates, revisions to the feast map for the Crystal Tower training grounds, the daily campaign rotation for Frontlines, updates to the glamour system, performance action updates, as well as guest books added to the housing, the duty roulette normal raids, which will be like Alexander normal and stuff like that. Custom delivery client of Kurenai, cross and cross-world link shells. Obviously, there's the companion app, which they didn't talk about at all in this live letter, and so on and so forth. So the first thing we really need to talk about is this page right here. As you can see, Ultimate 4.31, that's 2 weeks after May 22nd, so June 5th will be the beginning of the race for the world first for Ultima Weapon Ultimate, so start getting your bets in now of who's going to win this one. Heaven on High being 4.35 and Pagos being 4.36. So they're trying to spread those things out because I guess they feel there's no appropriate time to put each of them. If they don't want to put Ultimate and Heaven on High on the same patch, they don't want to put Pagos and Heaven on High in the same patch. They want people to be able to say, hey, here's this new content. This is what I'm going to log in and tackle and not have to choose to juggle between one of the two. It may mean that this patch feels a little bit weaker upon its initial launch, even with all the quality of life stuff. It's ultimately the 24-man, the new trial, the extreme, the dungeon, the new main scenario stuff, and any of the other small little additional features like, you know, the Namazu or the Domain Reconstruction. So it depends on how involved those actually end up feeling, but I suspect that the initial patch will feel a lot less because of these features being spread out across the various weeks. As for an actual schedule, I'm hoping 4.35 is a little earlier than 5 or 6 weeks than it normally is. I hope that it's like 2 weeks for Ultimate, another 2 weeks for 4.35 to be Heaven on High, and another 2 weeks for Pagos. Because then that would also make us only 10 weeks away from the next patch, approximately 10 weeks, depending on what they actually do scheduling-wise. And then it's not too long of a wait till 4.4, where the next raid tier and etc. will be coming out. So we'll have more discussions on that over the coming months. But then they decided to talk about job adjustments first. This is a big one because they initially said in the last live letter, Dark Knight, Astrologian, and what was the other one they mentioned in that one? Dark Knight, Astrologian, and Samurai were the 3 jobs that they were looking at job adjustments for. We now have 7 jobs that are getting adjustments in patch 4.3. They didn't go into too much specific detail. However, Iluna, the translator here, found a post on a blog that's at the very bottom of this. So what I think we're going to do is, even though the job adjustments are here, we'll go to the job adjustment translations at the bottom of the Reddit Discord's translation section after we've already covered everything else, so we can get the translations that are there. I guess if you want to take a quick look, Plunge and Ethereal Manipulation getting their animations sped up. Some sort of enmity tool is being given to Monk and Samurai to help them out with their enmity. Samurai's getting potency buffs, Dark Knight's getting potency buffs. But there's more below, so let's wait till we actually get to that part down at the bottom. The new Beast Tribe quests, the Namazu, these are crafting and gathering Beast Tribes. And these plushes apparently will not be sold in stores. They are for Crane Games in Japan. So if you're in Japan, good luck on winning a Namazu. If you're not in Japan, make friends with someone who is and tell them to go win it at a Crane game. So crafting, gathering, Beast Tribe quests, they're going to get their own camp in the Azim Steppe over on the western side of the map, up on the cliffs. And so that's going to mean Azim Steppe has 3 teleports, which is totally something that's welcome to me. And then they showed us the mount, which is actually the greatest mount to ever exist. It's a bunch of Namazu carrying a cart that you hang off the side of, and it has a little animation where it shakes and has like little fireworks and stuff. When it flies, on the other hand, as you can see, the Namazu just hang on for dear life. It's taking a little while to load, so let's see here. Let's try to refreshing it. You can still kind of see it, even though it's a little darker. The one Namazu in the back left is a little bit different from the rest of them. He looks like he's dead pretty much all the time, and he only ever holds on with one arm. But it's easily one of the best mounts I've ever seen, and looking at the picture doesn't do it enough justice, but it's great when they're running along the ground carrying you, and they make this little squeaking noise with every step that they take. So that's going to be a mount for progressing far into this new Beast Tribe. So if you're not a crafter or gatherer, you may want to get involved. Just use crafting and gathering Beast Tribes are like collectibles and lead quests to level up. It's honestly not that hard to do. It also have its own BGM, so it won't have the generic mount BGM, so that's a pretty big thing. Guest books are going to be added. This we're not going to go too deep into. Basically, guests can come, they can leave a comment on your house, and other people can like that comment if they want. You can leave a comment in your own guest book if you want, and I believe it holds up to 60 entries, 10 pages of 6 entries each. So I don't know if they're planning on using this information for anything, but it's there. New housing items, they have picnic style stuff, which is a little hard to see right here. But yeah, you can see the picnic stuff on the lawn with the actual picnic boxes as well, or picnic baskets. They don't really look like baskets so much. They are, but they don't look like them. Some other new housing items, you can see the kitchen style stuff with the stove top. That's going to be there. There's also a picture of it in game right here. They show some other stuff as well. They show like a broom and a bucket, which they show you sitting next to right here. Any day now. You can see it well enough. They also show off what looks like almost like a little like lamp. Like it's like an Azim Steppe, like one of the Aura tribe cottages, but it's like this little thing on, like it's just like a lamp. It's a lamp that's styled after an Aura cottage from the Azim Steppe, which I'd assume would come from the Namazu quests. There's also going to be a little bento box with the Moogle head and Namazu head. I'd assume those are rice treats and not actual heads, but you never know. They could do some demented things. And then this is just them showing also more aquariums in apartments increased from 6 to, well, on apartments increased up to 6, and then also medium houses go up to 8, and large houses go up to 10, and cannot be stacked. One more new item. So this is actually going to be earned from the upcoming Make It Rain seasonal event. For those who don't know, that's a yearly event for the Gold Saucer where there's a quest for it, and there's bonus MGP to be earned during those times. With the other changes, the Chocobo races are going to be thrown in the Duty Finder, and Lords for Minion tournament matches also in the Duty Finder, I guess. This is going to be what you're going to be able to earn. That's the basketball mini game from the Gold Saucer itself. It will be very expensive MGP-wise, so use the Make It Rain event to earn the MGP, so you can actually put that in your house. So the next thing is Ultima Weapon Ultimate. We have confirmed pretty much that Ultima Weapon Ultimate will, at the minimum, be made up of Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan, as well as Ultima Weapon itself. There's new BGMs for it. It's actually not necessarily new ones, but instead of using what are the current extreme mode, or I guess the current themes for the other versions of these fights in the game, like Garuda will instead have the Primal's rendition of the Garuda theme playing in the back. Ifrit will have the Primal's rendition of Ifrit's theme in the back. So you're going to hear different BGMs for these fights, and they're going to probably bring a bit more epic of a feel to the actual encounters themselves. The first boss that you'll actually fight inside is Garuda, and as you can see, the arena is sectioned off to a perfect circle. Touching the wall will kill you, and Garuda herself doesn't even have the rocks in this one. They're going to clear those out, and whatever mechanics you gotta do, you just gotta do them. We don't get to see much past the fact that there is a marker that looks like a stack marker before they get hit by what is, in the normal mode, it's just a conal AoE you can avoid. I don't know if it's two separate AoEs that just happen to hit. It's a tank buster plus some separate mechanic happening at the same time. It's not made abundantly clear because only one person is present. When I think to Twin Tanya, though, the very first mechanic that Twin Tanya makes you deal with is twisters and a fireball. So I feel like whatever's happening here, we absolutely don't have the full picture. It could be multiple stack markers plus a tank buster and some other stuff going on. But expect it to be probably as chaotic as the previous Ultimate, even if the fight itself is going to be a little bit shorter. Just remember, Ifrit, Garuda, Titan, Ultima Weapon. Doesn't mean that's all. Could mean, we had Golden Bahamut and some extravagant stuff there, but that's all we can say for certain at the very least. Heaven on High was talked about. This is the next deep dungeon, and it's going to share a lot of similarities with Palace of the Dead. The general progression, unlocking of the weapons is still going to be mostly the same. They detail that here, letting you know that the scenario quests for it go up to floor 30, and after floor 31, it's designed for high-end players or high-end challenges for fixed parties of 1 to 4 players, Fixed parties only, exactly like Palace of the Dead, floors 101 plus. You need to have not died leading up to those floors or not had a full wipe, meaning it resets your progress back to your last save point. And if at any point your entire party wipes and you're kicked out for completely wiping in the dungeon, you'll be rendered ineligible to continue your progress on the floors. So we have that 100 floors total, as everything I just described is right there. Next, they show again, players will obtain Pommanders, just like in Palace of the Dead. You can hold up to 3 of each Pommander, but there are other changes that are going to be taking place in here. They're getting rid of the Pommanders that were used to transform in the previous Palace of the Dead, or in the previous Deep Dungeon of Palace of the Dead, and replacing them with 3 new Pommanders. The Pommander of Incapacity applies Enervation to all enemies on a current floor. The Pommander of Concealment renders the players in the party are rendered invisible to enemies and traps. If you take any action or if you receive damage from any enemies, the effect will be removed. And the Pommander of Petrification, which will apply Petrification to all enemies on the current floor. To add one more note to that Petrification one, it's like Petrifaction from Turn 7 and Turn 7 Savage, or at least a pre-nerf Turn 7, I should say, where a petrified target, if they are hit, they will die in a single hit. This seems like the main replacement to the Manticore transformation back in Palace of the Dead, which allowed you to one-shot enemies. Instead, though, because it petrifies all the enemies and they all die in one hit, you could theoretically use it and then split up across the floor and have everyone go off and kill all the enemies simultaneously, as long as it's not a situation where, you step on a trap and cause a lot of trouble if you're all out on your own. On top of that, there's going to be some new elements. There's going to be NPCs that will aid you in combat occasionally on different floors. You can, and these are some of the minor auspices from the Four Lords questline. You have Komenyu, which will increase damage dealt if you're near him. You have Inugami, which will decrease the damage you take if you stand near him. And you have Senri, who will restore HP over time to anyone standing near them. So using them to kind of speed up your progress or to overcome some more difficult challenges, maybe a room with way more enemies than you're prepared for, and maybe potentially if your commanders are a little bit scarce, these guys should help you out, although you won't really be able to control it all that much. Next is Primal Summoning. So in Heaven on High, players may use certain Magicite to call forth Primals, which will use their powers to defeat all enemies on the entire floor. As obviously these won't work on boss floors, but it's basically Ifrit, Garuda, and Titan, and you can summon them for a single use summoning, and otherwise they act pretty much just like commanders. So yeah, that's what they are. That's what the Primal Summoning will be, and those again will be big save me buttons. Please save me buttons. On top of that, one of the more interesting things about them is the only way to obtain them is through silver coffers. So previously, bronze coffers were potions and potsherds, silver items were only weapon and armor upgrades, and gold chests were for commanders, and then occasionally mimics for all three of them until the later floors. However, with this, the silver coffers have been given an additional goal, which means that if a player is maxed out on their weapon and armor, you now have to make a decision on if it's worth trying to open the silver chests, potentially getting an explosion in the face, or if you're just to try and get a Magicite, or to just skip it altogether. So making the silver coffers a little bit more valuable to people who have already gotten their progression, which also encourages, if you're someone with a really high level on your weapon and armor, to still open silver chests if you're playing with players who maybe aren't as far with their silver chest progression. So, pretty good idea overall. On top of that, the floor effects, there's going to be some ones that are removed, and then there's going to be some that are added in. There's going to be a new floor effect, which will apply sprint to all players at all times, so you're permanently sprinting for the duration of the floor. And there's also the Magicite prohibited floor effect, which will make it so you can't use Ifrit, Garuda, or Titan if you have them. So, plenty of different things here. On top of that, there's going to be weapons you can obtain. We don't know the item level, but they're completely changing the way that Deep Dungeon weapon progression works. Previously, the way that it worked is you needed to give up a bulk amount of your weapon and armor progression inside the Deep Dungeon itself in order to obtain a weapon outright. Now what's going to be happening is you can sacrifice just 10 levels to obtain a token, and then you bring the requisite number of tokens to the NPC, and they'll give you the item. Now, I say Deep Dungeons because this is retroactively being added into Palace of the Dead as the way that progression is handled there as well. So, it means that you could be 99.99 and not have to give up all, like, 30 levels plus 60 levels to immediately get a weapon. You can choose to do it over time and grind out levels, I guess not all in bulk, and being able to do it in set periods of time. It also means if you just want to grind to 10 plus 10 plus 10, buy a token, grind to plus 10 plus 10, and then stick to the lower floors, you can absolutely do that as well. So it's only better. So I'm down with it. I'm down with it. There's not really much more to say. Of course, using the Accursed Horde or items in exchange for potsherds, minions, mounts, other special items like Glamour will be available as well. Moving on to the next thing, this was just them doing a quick demonstration. They also show off there's some new floors. There's some new looks for the floors themselves. So he just goes through with God mode in real quick and just goes through it. Now, based on the way that Palace of the Dead worked, when you went into Palace of the Dead, your weapon was replaced with an etheric weapon. So we have to presume that the weapon that he's using right there is actually also just the etheric weapon from inside of Heaven on High. And somebody pointed out it looks like a second coil weapon that's been turned into the kind of glowing version of, or a glowing version of it for Heaven on High itself. But we'll have to wait till the patch to see that officially, but I'd pretty much accept that that is what the Heaven on High weapon is going to look like when you decide to take it out of the Deep Dungeon overall. Now, of course, they also have new types of floors. They have these giant, wide open floors that you can run into now, where the enemies just kind of wander around. There's some set packs. The treasure chests are out in the open. And more importantly, it probably means this place is littered with traps on the ground. So simply walking around them will be something that takes a little bit of practice, because people will probably try to map out where the possible spawn locations are for traps, and that only worked probably with about 60% accuracy back in Palace of the Dead. But altogether, it's nice to have these sort of visual changes to keep it a little bit more fresh, and I look forward to pulling the entire floor whenever I go through with my friends inside of Heaven on High. And yes, it's randomized, so you don't really know where things will be, what they'll be, and you'll just need to go around kill enemies until you open up the exit. Let's see. They said that this floor is good for using the Commander of Petrifaction, but beware of traps. Then they had performance updates, another feature I don't really mess around with much because I'm not very musically talented. They're adding in new instruments. They're fixing up some of the old notes that didn't sound great. They're making it so you can hold a note and then press other notes. So you can hold a note and it'll hold until you release the button. And on top of that, for instruments, we have the oboe, piccolo, clarinet, flute, and pan flutes. All 5 of those instruments will be added. They're currently in development of a grand piano, a steel guitar, and a pizzicato. On top of that, they also added a wider keyboard mode, I suppose. You'll be able to expand the keyboard layout, so that's another good thing. They also finally are adding a colorblind mode to the game, where they'll have 3 set different colorblind modes, as well as a slider that determines how much you want to filter the colorblind changes. So you can see this is being added to the accessibility menu, and it's going to be the option that's under the, I guess, the sound wave feature. That was the one prior. So you can see this is what the game looked like with the filter on the 3rd mode with the filter turned up to 100. They are in the Shadow Realm, and that is the most frightening thing I've ever seen in my life. As a colorblind player, I personally feel that Square Enix has done a great job developing the game around colorblind people without really needing a colorblind mode. There's still cases where that's not 100% accurate. Shiva's AoEs being almost the same color as her arena was a big example back in 2.4, but they've really done a better job of shying away from that. So I don't feel this is as necessary, but as someone who suffers from a very rare form of colorblindness, this is something that I'll probably dabble in if I find the need for it. There's obviously still other things that, can be improved in terms of color access, and this should help filter out those remaining things without them necessarily having to develop around colorblind people anymore. So, moving forward, PvP, they announced a regional championship for all 3 of the fan fests. They're going to be starting preliminaries in July, and then they're going to have the semifinals to decide champions within each data center, which means that, North America is going to have 2 data centers, and then I'd have to imagine that the tournament format will follow around that. And then on top of that, there's, Europe only has 1, so I'm not sure how they'll do that. And Japan has 3. So curious to see how they actually do the brackets for all of that, since it's per data center, not per region. And then they'll fly, and then if you're one of the finalists, you'll fly you out to FanFest for the finals. That's it. They'll pay for your ticket, they'll pay for your flight, your hotel, all that stuff. It'll all be covered by Square Enix. And they said you'll receive a prize. They don't say what the prize is, so please look forward to more details in a future date. So then they took a quick break. They took a 10-minute break, showed off some photo slideshows, and then brought back Yasumi Matsuno. Yasumi Matsuno, he had a lot to say. He had a lot of stuff about the development of tactics. A lot of it's lost to me. Even though there's translated stuff here, this is a section we're not going to cover in great detail. However, they did use it as the opportunity to tease the new 24-man, the Ritterana Lighthouse. They went in-game, showed the visuals a little bit, got an idea of what it looks like outside, the scale of the lighthouse itself. And he did his best to try and not spoil anything. He skipped the intro, but there were some text boxes popping up that I'm sure people could go through and translate if they really want to get some screenshots of them. For example, if someone wants to translate that real quick, we can find out who's saying it, what they're saying. Although I'm sure it's just something like, wow, this lighthouse is really big from the outside, or something like that. But yeah, go ahead and just translate that real quick. We can see that the first boss of Pharos of Ritterana Lighthouse, gotta stop calling it the Pharos at Ritterana, is Famfrit. You can see that right there. That's Famfrit. No trash leading up to the first boss, just like Mateus was in the royal city of Rabanastre. And on top of that, there's just he just talked about a lot of details and what went into the development of the Ritterana Lighthouse. He said that there's so much story in this patch for the Return to Ivalice raid, it'll feel like it has the same amount of volume and quality as the main story itself. So this is going to be quite the undertaking. If you're someone who is definitely yearning more out of the Raid series itself, expect to get a lot of story about what is going on since the events of the royal city of Rabanastre. There was also mentioned in the last live letter that there's going to be some crafting side quests for the Return to Ivalice Raid series. People have suggested that it could be building stuff for the actual Prima Vista for the plays that they put on, but we didn't get any more details about that, so we'll just have to wait until we get the patch notes next week, most likely. So let's see, there's a female Alra in the trailer. The trailer actually shows quite a few things. It looked like Gabronth was in the trailer, and potentially, as we said earlier, Balthier is very likely the character that was shown towards the end of the trailer itself. But then, yeah, he shows off his... A lot of people kept thinking this was, like, more character customization. All this is like, screenshots of individual sections of the screen, so people can replicate that Alra's image with these exact settings. This is not new customization options. This is not a new customization screen. You can see all the different sections clearly boxed off. And, yeah, that's all it is. He's just showing you... He's just giving you a template for that character. Here they talked about the development process of Return to Ivalice, how they started with the idea, how they landed on certain concepts, how many bosses there were going to be, how many of them were going to be designed by Amamiya, or is it Amamiya, or where is it? I always forget his last name. Yeah, Amamiya. I was right the first time. All right, let's scroll down. Yeah, that's what all these are about. They just wanted to make sure that they got all the development concepts covered and out the way. Agrius, they talk a little bit about bringing Agrius into the game, whether or not she will be. So there's never really a set comment about it, or at least not that's translated here. He asks about the Hurons he says, well, Yasumi consider ask a question, considering we have Hurons in 14, do you want to see Agrius in a Huron setting? Also, you want to do something, have to negotiate it with the Screen CEO for this. So yeah, just a bunch of questions. They showed off some of the gear from the series, some Final Fantasy Tactics and 12 themed gear. You can see that one right there. You can see this one. You can see this one. And then people should recognize this last one. That's Vaughn, but I think that's Vaughn more from Revenant Wings, the sequel to Final Fantasy 12. So it looks like Sky Pirate. I like to call it Sky Pirate Vaughn. That's what we're going to go with there. I like this question. I want to fight Yayazmat. Will you make a Yayazmat boss? And all he did was this. He went, Next question. So, anyway. Oh, it's Vaughn from Tactics Advanced 2. All right, well, that works. I'm just looking at my Twitch chat right now because I couldn't help but notice that. He even brought the 1.0, the Final Fantasy Tactics 1.0 draft for what was pitched when Final Fantasy Tactics first came out. This is all the way back when. He was just flipping through all the pages, talking about the movement, about the different menus and all this stuff. And then there's just some other questions sprinkled about here. Amamiya will also have designs seen in episode 2 of Return to Ivalice. And let's see, they don't think anything more is needed. Let's see, can we get clothes? Can we get what Ramza and Alma wear as outfits? They said maybe eventually. Can they do a mini game that's like a strategic RPG inside of Final Fantasy XIV? Obviously people think that could be something inside of the toy chest or something like that. They've recently mentioned the possibility of including Final Fantasy games in the toy chest itself, like Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3, etc. But we'd probably have to get charged a full game price and then playing them in the game anyway. So I'm not sure how they'd really go about that. But that was just like an idea they presented, not something they're actually hard working on. So then again, this is just going through all the different things that they were showing earlier. Will they include more Tactics Advanced stuff? Can we get a sequel to it? He said, beg the Square Enix CEO if you want that. What kind of details of taking notes does he have on writing scenario and dialogues for R2, which is, I think, the company he actually works for right now. That's not Square Enix based. Any reference or influences for your work? He mentioned Shakespeare. Is there, when creating games, is there something you prioritize and treasure? And he says deadlines and game atmosphere. And of course, it has to be fun. Aside from story, what's the thing you like most about 14? Story. Just the story itself. That's the big thing that he actually really likes the most. Anything you want to tell Yoshi P? Eureka. Please improve the Eureka aspect. You can track other party members who get too far away. We know we're getting that. Wants more quality of life improvements, and said that Yasumi says he's looking from the player's POV, so deal with it. And it's like, I'm a player of the game. This is what I want. Give it to me. All right. Then on top of that, they started talking about more FanFest stuff. They did not give us ticket sales for the North American one just yet, so expect those to get talked about maybe at the E3 live letter, which gets confirmed a little bit, a couple of slides down from here. But they confirmed the date for the European FanFest, finally. But it didn't have a date up till now. February 2nd and 3rd in Paris, France, at that place. So if you're going to the European FanFest, you can now start booking your hotels and flights and stuff like that. So let's see here. And then this is just a recap of when all the different FanFests are, November 16th and 17th, plus registration day for North America, and then what they just announced for Paris, France, and then March 23rd and 24th for Japan. So, yeah, Shakespeare. Yeah, Shakespeare. But it said Shakespeare, so I just read it at some point. What game do you want to develop? This is, by the way, this is just sprinkling in more Q&A that they were doing while Hez was posting pictures of this stuff. E3. So they made a little bit of a blunder here. So people have been trying to figure out what the trial is going to be for the next main scenario patch. And there's no solid information. They said we won't know who it is, what it is, until we actually play it in game. They didn't include it in the trailer of the patch. However, at the bottom here, they decided to say the Primal. So we know it's a Primal. Against the new Primal introduced in patch 4.3. So they may have just wanted to have said the word trial, but they didn't. So I'm still going with my guess of... I still like the theory people had that it's Tsukiyomi, the moon god in Japan. Obviously not the only god that it could be. Amaterasu is the sun god and could be a possibility as well. But under the moonlight, Tsukiyomi, yeah, we're probably going to go with that. But either way, you'll get to play it at E3 and win a shirt for it if you're going. So Tsukiyomi, still holding that to be the possibility. Tsukiyomi could be a Primal. That's all it has to be. There's also going to be a live letter there. Tuesday, June 12th at 11 a.m. Pacific. Yes, they're good times for America because it's in America. So don't get used to it. But it is nice to have that every once in a while. So moving on from that, Eor's in Symphony, more reminders that that's coming up. There's also going to be the Hollywood red carpet cosplay walk for those people who are dressed in cosplay. They're going to have the opportunity to walk the red carpet before our special guests. So that'll be Saturday, June 16th at the Dolby Theater for the Symphony. So yeah, must have a ticket to attend either Friday or Saturday. So if you have a ticket for Friday, you can still go to the red carpet walk if you have cosplay on the following day. So, but you already have to have the ticket. So don't just be like, I'm showing up and I'm here, now give me a ticket. Need one already. So then they also announced the next Fate, the full active time event. No mention of a live letter here. I don't suspect we'll see a live letter at this Fate, mostly because it's a little too early to do a 4.4 part 1 live letter. And that's the reason. I don't know why I made it seem like there was another. So I don't think there'll be a live letter here. I think it'll just be one of their live events that has like mini games and, you know, in-game stuff for people to play. And it will be invitation only. So, you know, I'll never get to go to one. I'll never get to go. They're also going to be doing something interesting. Final Fantasy XIV team will be playing Final Fantasy Tactics live. And apparently Japan has 26 hours in the day because it goes up to 2600 time in Japan. I'm assuming that's just a designation for 2 a.m. the next day because it's all part of one event. So instead of saying 1400 to 02, they just said 26. Or there's something I don't know. But either that or Japan has 2 extra hours in the day and I don't know. So they have all the different guests that are going to be playing it across this Saturday, May 12th, which is tomorrow. And then also next Saturday, which will actually have Yasumi Matsuno and Naoki Yoshida playing in the later hours. I'm curious the big reason what brought this about other than Matsuno being on the team for Return to Ivalice. Makes me feel like something tactics related might happen or something news related. I don't know or maybe they just, oh, you know what would make a lot of sense for people who haven't played tactics but are really looking forward or want to understand more about Return to Ivalice. This would be an opportunity for you to get to learn a little bit if you can read Japanese and understand everything that's that's going on. But I can imagine that's probably the main reason, is for people who didn't play Tactics, for them to get a better idea of what's going on, I suppose, in the Return to Ivalice raid series. Let's see, anything else? It sounds like Aloha's being a butt out there, because I just heard his name mentioned. And so then 4.3 patch note reading, they do that every time. The Primal's album is coming out. Release is going to be late May of this, well, later this month for $33 US, and all the other prices are right there. Pre-order your copy today. The Stormblood original soundtrack is going to be coming out as well. This one's a little bit more pricey at $50 US, and this is just the first soundtrack, the first official soundtrack for Stormblood. And then they just showed off the cover, the back, and then got some comments from Yasumi Matsuno. He said that the story for Return to Ivalice this time will be really long, and that Yoshida is thanks for watching and bye. That's it. So now we just wait for the official digest. However, I did say there were some more translations here at the bottom. Also, there's a translation here from Hez. Why? That monster Bakamonon awakens. What? So basically, it's, oh my god, there's Famfrit in a nutshell. So moving forward, here are the here's I guess a more direct translation. This is from another unofficial translation, and this is Reddit's Aluna translating what was said based on this blog. So basically, it's a Japanese blog, the translating Japanese blog, which watched the Japanese live letter and said this is what they said, so we're translating that. There we go. All right. So anyway, here we have it. Finally, we have the job changes, or at least a more concise, put together job changes based on the Japanese blog. So Dark Knight, no adjustments to Dark Arts, potency increases, defense portion increased. That is very not clear, but it makes it seem like some sort of defensive buff to Dark Knights as well. That could be a number of things. That could be a TBN change, which I doubt it'll be, or at least not to the degree people may have suggested they wanted to see it, something that's party-wide, which I doubt would happen. It could be just one of their cooldowns being adjusted, maybe Dark Mind, maybe Shadow Wall's cooldown reduction, something. It could be anything. So it's very broad, but it is some sort of defensive increase for them. Usability improved. Now, whenever I think of usability on Dark Knight, I always think of Blackest Night. Could be things like Dark Mind as well, which is restricted to magic damage currently. However, all we know is 8 of their skills are going to be getting changes, and among them there's potency increases, a defensive buff, usability improvement. Plunge is also one of them. The animation is going to be shortened, so you get from point A to point B a little faster. So they said openly that Dark Knight, the suggestions they were reading were great, but it would take about 6 months to rework Dark Knight based on those suggestions. So they said minor changes for now, suggesting it's possible that Dark Knight gets more major changes down the line before 5.0. I don't think they'll get any major changes before 5.0, personally. We'll see. I'm more than open to being wrong about that. Monk, an enmity suppression skill will be added, though the trade-off is firepower when used. That's weird to me. Now, enmity suppression is a very specific type of word to use for this. Now, diversion on its own right now is fairly good. I still almost pull aggro when tanks don't stay in tank stance and there's no ninja. So I'm curious if it's meant to make ninjas' enmity tools less important, or if it's because Monk they determine they have too much enmity generation right now. Is it something that you use on yourself? It's something you use on an ally? And also, what firepower am I giving up? Am I giving up Greased Lightning stacks? Are they going to make it so Tornado Kick drops enmity? I mean, that would be in line with trade-off is firepower, and Tornado Kick's currently the key way of getting rid of stacks. So, but they say it's a skill. They say it's a skill, so it's implied that it's a brand new skill. So we'll have to wait and see. We'll have to wait for the patch notes next week to get more information about that. But it's about all I can think of. Those are the only suggestions I currently have. I don't think it's going to be just Shadewalker and Smokescreen, or one of the two on a new button that decreases your damage dealt by 5% or some shit. I don't know. So Samurai is getting potency increases, their basic combo potency is going up, and they're also getting enmity control. So both Monk and Samurai are getting enmity control. I'm still very surprised to see this on both of them, but I don't know. When I think of the other two melees, Ninja has enmity control. Like they can add or they can basically give diversion to somebody, or they can just transfer their enmity to another person. Dragoon has the backflip to cut enmity. So I'm just curious what it's going to be like for Samurai and Monk with new enmity skills altogether. So it's just a question that we don't have an answer to yet. Ninja is they're getting damage dealing based utility. So DD based utility. So somebody said that it's assumed to be deep dungeon in this context. That's weird to me. Why? What about Ninja needs to be adjusted for deep dungeon in particular? The most annoying thing is like losing Huton because like everything dies so fast you can't get an armor crush off. Like I don't know what the reason behind that would be. So let's assume that it is DD based for usability. Maybe Hyde's movement speed decrease won't be as severe in Deep Dungeon. That's a possibility. I mean, that's about it. Like, it's just, I don't understand, I guess, the lore behind that. I guess they use them more like a scouting class inside of Deep Dungeon. That would make sense. I mean, maybe in Deep Dungeon, Hyde doesn't reduce your movement speed. So you can legit just walk past shit and you can go scope the rooms as a ninja. That's a possibility if it is Deep Dungeon related. If it were something that was damage dealing related, which is the other word that DD could possibly stand for, the only thing that makes sense to me is Trick Attack having its damage increasing portion, the debuff, the 10-second Trick Attack debuff, making it non-positional. I'm surprised it honestly still is positional, and good ninjas always land it as it is anyway, but it's in line with some changes they've made with other jobs over the last few expansions, so but if it is Deep Dungeon based, then the Hyde thing is probably the most likely. It's also possible Shikuchi's getting more adjustments, but I don't really think they need any more on that, only because Black Mage is getting ethereal manipulation and between the lines animation adjustments to make them even faster. They already got buffs to ethereal manipulation, like the animation and the travel speed, but they're making even more adjustments to them. So with them doing that to plunge, with them doing that to ethereal manipulation between the lines, I guess Shikuchi wouldn't be too much of a surprise as well for Ninja. But again, it's already really fast on Ninja, so I don't think it needs any adjustments. So let's just assume Hyde or the Trick Attack change. Scholar pet usability adjustments. I was initially excited when I read this, but then I realized it was only Scholar listed. So it's not like they're going to make pets more responsive with this. What I'd have to assume is one of their skills, like Fey Union or any of the other skills, whatever they are, they're going to be made, I guess, easier to use. The last time Scholar got usability adjustments was when they made XCOG proc, even if they didn't fall below 50%. If the duration wore off, you got the heal. So, I don't know. It could be, it's something to pets, something along the lines of that XCOG change, but for pets. And Astro got some pretty good buffs here. The cast time of their attack-based skills was reduced. So that's Malefic 3 and Gravity, which basically means they finally have active attack spells that will let them weave between the GCD. At least that's my interpretation of it. That could be good for card drawing between your GCD instead of trying to do card draws on the GCD, which is pretty much what you do now when you're just spamming Malefic 3. So that's good. That's a very positive change for Astro. Light speed, according to this translation, a reminder, unofficial, Lightspeed's MP reduction effect is being doubled, meaning that it'll reduce the amount of MP that spells cost while under Lightspeed by 50%. According to Astros, this is a good change because Astro, of all the things they weren't good at, apparently MP management was the one kind of still standout weakness that the job had. But the other thing here, damage inflict down will be removed. That would imply that you could Lightspeed Gravity or Lightspeed Malefic 3 or basically Lightspeed for DPS instead of exclusively Lightspeeding for healing. Now, would that be an effective use? I'll let Astros have that discussion. But that is still a pretty good thing because generally, no matter what you're doing with Lightspeed, most of the time, not every GCD is being spent on the exact same thing. Even if you're using Lightspeed to heal, unless it's something that is like a dire situation, I can't imagine that when you use Lightspeed, I'd imagine that good Astros click off of Lightspeed to get the damage buff back currently. Again, I don't play Astro, so I just assume that. Now it basically means if you need the Lightspeed for like 2 GCDs, and then you want a DPS, make use of the Lightspeed buff. Then Lightspeed some Malefic 3s while you're on top of that. Or Lightspeed Gravities for murdering tons of enemies, pretty much. So, or Lightspeed Resurrections is another thing if you want to get a couple seconds off. But regardless, on top of that, Aspected Helios is going to be buffed. either way, these are some great changes to Astros. It gives them a lot more flexibility with their off GCDs, and it makes it so Lightspeed isn't this hindrance past the 1 or 2 heals you might need under it. So, and it's something that's better for dungeons, something better for AoEing in general. It's just overall good changes for Astros. I was really wondering what they were going to do to Astro this patch, and I like what I see here. I'm curious to see how the healers will take this discussion, where that puts Astro in terms of its efficiency compared to White Mage and Scholar, considering Astro is already considered fairly valuable, even if it still has a few weaknesses. I'm curious to see where the healers, who are career healers, actually take this discussion. But anyway, that is the live letter. That's it. That's everything. I know that's it. I only spent 40 friggin' minutes talking about it. Almost let out the F word on there, hashtag demonetized. So probably said it once or twice during the video anyway. But yeah, it was a pretty good live letter. The only thing I know people are going to talk about is having 4.31, 4.35, 4.36, having pretty much most of the major content in the patch almost split about every 2 weeks. I think it'll end up working out okay, depending on what the weight is between 4.31 and 4.35. And then if 4.35 and 4.36 is another 2 weeks, I'd say that's probably the biggest point of discussion. But we'll have to see. A lot of good stuff here, a lot of quality of life. And we'll know more next Friday with the preliminary patch notes, which we'll be doing a video on those as well. But anyway, I am going to wrap up this video. I still have to record a video regarding the trailer and breaking down the certain things we see there, what weapons we see, what scenarios we think are happening. So we're going to do that right now on the Twitch live stream after I rest my voice for a couple minutes and maybe get something to drink. But for those of you on YouTube, thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned, because 4.3 is going to have a ton of videos. And my video content gets spread out over all those patches as well. So expect a steady flow of videos instead of everything in the first 2 or 3 days. I will see all you fine ladies and gentlemen on YouTube next time. Twitch, we're still here. We got a long stream ahead of us. So YouTube, I'll see you next time. And until then, take care. They didn't mention it, so there's nothing worth bringing. People already know about that.